The Bologna Sandwich Show with Julia Bernstein. My mom and dad served bologna sandwiches at their Jewish Pentecostal wedding. And then I was born.
And then I grew up into a bright-eyed, middle-aged dropout queen who has 3 degrees, no career, not married, and still living her best life. Clearly, I'm cut from the same cloth as winners.
And that's exactly why I made the Bologna Sandwich Show. To remind us that everything in life is baloney. The good, the bad, the ugly, the weird. So stop taking yourself so seriously, you. And eat a piece of bologna!
Yay!
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all social medias. That's baloney!
Yay! Hi, everybody. Welcome to my Bologna Sandwich Show live. Friends of the Bologna live with Nicolas Volante. He's going to jump on here soon, and we're going to talk about some really cool bologna things. Space aliens, life hacks, how to get yourself out of a mind F-U-C-K, you know what I mean? Lots of cool things. Nicolas is also an author. He's a flight attendant. He's a friend. And we started this because he is rewriting a book that he started a few years ago. And he's rewriting it or writing a new one. I can't remember what it is. I think he's rewriting a new one about his life. And Nicolas has been through so many crazy things in life. He's an AIDS survivor. He has just done so much. He's dealt with so much, and he wanted to talk about his life. And I said, come on to my Bologna Sandwich Show. And so here it is. But before Nicolas comes on, I'm going to show you a video from our proud sponsor, the Turtitoids. And this is going to make you laugh a toid. So here we go. Here we go.
And now, a word from our sponsors, the Turtitoids.
Vroom, vroom.
Hey, boys and girls, I'm Impalatoid. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And head to Turtitoid.com where you can buy us on some t-shirts. Brought to you by the Turtitoids.
Yay! Wait, one more. One more. This is how we do it. Hold on. I want you guys to see this.
And now, a word from our sponsors, the Turtitoids.
I said Turtitoids, not Turtitoids. Hey, that would be silly if we were called the Turtitoids. Get it, turd?
Anyways, remember to like, share, and subscribe so her channel can grow. Yay!
Hello, darling.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. A little lower energy today, but once we get started, who knows what'll happen?
That low energy is good.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's the message that matters.
Yeah.
It doesn't push it out because it's horizontal. You'd have to activate dual stream setting on YouTube Studio app for it to go vertical and horizontal and push out. Oh, here, let me show the comments so you can see this. Nicolas.
Okay. See, I knew there had to be a way to do it. I mean, I'm not literate in this, but I'm learning.
Well, okay, you're right. Because when I set up my StreamYard, my live, it's like, do you want this to be horizontal or vertical? And that makes sense. If it's vertical, it's being pushed out. But for some reason, it says it recommends that I just do horizontal, not both. So whatever. I'm going to do both because then it's being pushed out. And Nadine said she loves the entry. Thank you. Nadine, I don't know if you've ever met Nicolas Volante. You guys would get along.
Okay.
Nadine is the most amazing woman. I've known her for years. She was my best friend's mom. And then I became best friends with I always become friends with my friends' mothers. She's like, she reads people's energy. She's super smart.
I'm sorry.
She's read me like a book. But anyways, Nadine, Nicolas, meet each other, say hi.
Yep. Hi.
Yeah. So Nicolas, we talked earlier this week about like what we were going to discuss. And I don't remember what it was. Do you?
Oh, yeah. It's a conversation that has been coming up. And it's funny that your show, when I came in, you were talking about space aliens and things like this, because, you know, some of the spiritual stuff that I listen to on YouTube. Are you familiar with Bashir? God, what's the guy's name that? Oh, this is really bad.
Does he have something to do with?
He's a space. But Dale, someone help me here.
Yeah, Nadine, do you know?
It's God, what's his name? Dale. No, it's not Dale. It's
lose their careers by talking
hang
about
on,
this
sorry.
kind of thing.
So
To me, that's a major difference. That's a sea change.
Daryl Anka is the guy that has been around. He's been channeling this. He's actually really good. I like him, and my sister turned me on to him. And this, it's all about understanding our spiritual nature, like coming home, and understanding that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. We're not alone in the universe. All the things that I have been studying for the last 50 plus years.
I love
and
that.
It seems to be catching on. And what has been coming up a lot for me in meditation and some of the things I'm watching is our relationship with uncertainty. If you'd asked me this question a year ago, it would have been quite different. And it's kind of surprised me in a lot of ways. But so many people, and my darling husband, who is teaching me so much, the whole idea that we interact with people and they become mirrors for us to look at our own stuff as opposed to constantly projecting, which is what we see every day that we turn the news on.
Yeah.
You were talking about our dear president, and someone took him to task today. George Conway took him to task today because he said there should be a cognitive exam for presidents running for president, because then we wouldn't have gotten Sleepy Joe or Obama. It's like,
right.
It almost becomes ridiculous when you watch this and you go, wow, this is the power of projection. But I think I mentioned it last year, but or no, but in one of the comments, but last year I got injured at work. I had a couple of injuries at work.
Tell people what you do.
Oh, I'm a flight attendant, and I love my job, and I still love my job, although I am getting tired, and I decided I'm not going to retire quite yet.
Yeah, I don't think you should.
Yeah, I think it was more of a reaction to just being tired. And when those who have had to deal with a workers' comp system, it is just, I mean, it's yeah. So this whole thing about relationship with uncertainty, like the mind wants certainty, and I'm not doing anything. I'm still evaluating, like, what do I want to do with this? So just to give some perspective I wrote a book that I published in 2018 called 29 Days and a Wake Up. And it was based on my near-death experience in 2013 from AIDS-related pneumonia. It also was hugely cathartic, and it dealt with the events in my life that led up with it, that I was a caregiver for my ex-husband with Lyme disease, that I had cared for him for almost 10 years. And in 2005, he had a psychotic break and stabbed me with a knife. And all those things. And then, it starts the book in 1995, which I call my, annus horribilis, which was the year I lost my two best friends to AIDS and my stepmother. Wow. And I, as a writer, a storyteller, I say, who has ADHD, dyslexia, and all those, it was the first good. It was people, those that have read it have given me very good feedback, and they've loved it. They love the story.
Yeah.
But I started putting it together when I met my husband, Ron, and he has this brilliant ability to formulate things that are abstract for me.
Yeah.
And he came up with the whole concept. The 29 days was the 29 days I stayed in the hospital and went in literally with less than 20% lung function and not expected to make it through the night. And then ended up on this journey of a month in the hospital that culminated in 50 days spent in the hospital from December 15th of 2012 to March 13th of 2013. On 3 separate visits. I was in the hospital for 50 days total with
Damn.
3 ICU visits. So he helped me put together this whole idea of, okay, so you're in the hospital for 30 days. And in that time, you have this, this awareness of like, okay, what's brought me here? I knew I was dying. I came to peace with that fact. And then I had this amazing near-death experience in which I left my body, talked to the powers that be,
Yeah.
which are really a reflection of who we are, and had this conversation and decided to stay, and came back and had this meteoric recovery. And then, as I love in the song "Why" by Annie Lennox, dying is easy. It's living that scares me to death. And so Ron came up with the idea that the 29 days in the military slang, a wake up is the day you're released from your deployment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So he said, so you had 29 days and a wake up. And it's I love the title. I mean, and I'm my own worst critic in terms of dealing with like, okay, so there was typos and there's, I write what I read, and my sister, my older sister, who's a librarian, is always telling me, she's like, honey, write, just write. There are people who edit, and people that write don't edit. And much to the chagrin of Stacy McLean, my writing coach, it is a process for me. And I'm still sorting out. So what inevitably happened is that I started continuing the story past when I had, went back to work, and there was this 2-year pause between, or, story where I pick up the story where I meet Ron.
Yeah.
And start to talk about my evolution and moving away and getting, and then falling in love with him. And then we had to end the book at some point. And we did it in 2018 after our famous trip to Italy.
Yeah.
In which we decided we're going to be friends. It's anticlimactic, in my opinion. It's like, why would you tell us all this stuff? So I laid on it. And then, I'll just share my process with people, which is, when the political winds started shifting, and they didn't shift in the most progressive ways, and you've been on social, you've been doing your show for a while.
Yeah.
But when you're a gay man and you come out and you talk about you inevitably get, I watch it all day long, and you get the backlash, you get the Christian white ring fundamentalists that are like trying to sell you Jesus or whatever it is that they're doing. And I'm like, I'm too old for this shit. I just don't want to put up with it. Plus some people are, they're threatening. And so it made me just recoil. It's like, I don't know that I want to be out there, but people kept saying, oh, your message, your story is so wonderful, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, let somebody, it reminds me of this book written by Richard Bach. He wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which is an old book about, it's an old book. And then he wrote this book called Illusions. And it's about these 2 pilots that are barnstormers in the mystical land of Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is where
no way.
Yeah, that's how the book opens up. And he meets there's one guy, and I forget the names. I have the book, but he meets this guy who's the Messiah, who decides to give up he doesn't want to do the job. And so and he said, well, how do you know? He said, because it came with a book, and it's called The Handbook for the Advanced Soul. It's very tongue-in-cheek.
That's cute.
But it's sort of the Jesus story that ends in this, sort of dramatic ending, and there's a lesson in there. But he says, I don't want to do it. I'm resigning as the Messiah, because I don't want to put myself out there.
Yeah.
Not that I'm the Messiah, but
I get what you're saying. You have something to say, and
yeah. And so this morning I had some clarity around it, which is, it's not about the numbers game. Yeah, I've been doing this long enough in terms of my studies, my metaphysical studies, my spiritual studies. I'm an ordained interfaith minister. I
Yeah.
studied with Rabbi Joseph Gelberman, who's one of the most amazing souls that I ever had the pleasure. And that was like 40 years, 1989. I don't do math well. I think it was 30 some years. It was close to 40. But I'm out on TikTok. I'm observing. I'm taking in data, and I watch the same stories, and people, it just seems like there's so many people, blah 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 blah. They're just out there talking
Wow.
this, same things, similar things. And one young kid who doesn't even look old enough to be on TikTok is out there with this certainty and
Wow.
telling people how to visualize and
Yeah.
be the spiritual thing. And he goes, you can't. And then he says this one thing, and I just swipe left. It's like, you can't have $1 million mentality without having $1 million. And I was like, oh, for God's sakes. Why? I lived through all the creative visualization stuff and all these I'm not going to name names because some of them are dead and good riddance, but just, the secret mentality, which is, I'm going to do all of this spiritual stuff for the sake of creating the big fancy car, the dream job, the lover, the house, the whatever. And it's like, that's a lot of work. And it's also, to me, a very stressful. It's kind of stressful. And my relationship with uncertain, like how to do all that, has really come to this very quiet, very calm. My alignment with my inner spirit is all I have to do.
I love that. That's
all I have to do. Because, and you're talking about, it's so funny, I believe that we are in a shift. We're going through, I believe in ascension theory, that we are going through an evolutionary process that is leaving the old patriarchy, power over, authority outside of ourselves. I've spent a lifetime working on this, and I'm still learning. I'm still, it's like the Buddha say, you chop wood and you carry water, and then you become enlightened, and you chop wood and you carry water.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that dialing back on the influence, like, there is so much going on right now globally and in our country that is trying to steal our attention. It's trying to distract us. It's saying, be afraid, be really afraid. And again, my husband, God love him, he's a veteran. He's military trained. He's got PTSD and other things. He's a military sexual assault survivor. So his plate's loaded with a lot of stuff. And what I've learned over the years, and this is what I'm trying to convey. Let me finish this thought, and then I'll go back because I jump around. That's my ADHD. We just yell squirrel every once in a while.
Okay.
Squirrel. Yeah. So, yeah, that's why some kind of a daily practice is essential. Some time to sit with yourself. And I'm learning, as someone with ADHD, these practices, sit for 30 minutes or an hour. Well, I would blow my brains. I just can't. So I do 2 or 3 minutes several times a day.
Yeah. I kind of, go ahead. I was just going to say, I'm kind of like that too, where my meditation, sometimes if I sit still, that doesn't work. So one way I found that works for me well is to find something really funny to watch. And I feel like that just makes me relax so much. I can write better if I'm needing to write. But I do think sometimes too, I do believe in the practice of pushing oneself if that's what they need to do. But also, if what works for you is just a few minutes of checking in, and that clears your mind, and you know how to do it, and you've done this for so long, you don't have to sit through an hour of meditating. You know how to clock in, how to reset. Right. And then that works for you.
Well, I also think there's somewhat, it's funny, there's some of these folks out selling, how to become wealthy. Like being wealthy is the goal. And it's kind of for me at this stage of my life. I mean, I'm comfortable and, I don't, I'm not wanting for anything really. I mean, but also my relationship with what I want is, I have a nice place to live. I just bought a new car. Um, you know,
Cool.
yeah. And part of it is trying not to establish this big plan. I mean,
Yeah.
intuitively, like last year, I was going to retire, and then it was like, you know what? Yeah, no, maybe I can still find a way to do that. And so it really is being in the moment and listening to that inner voice
Mm.
and calming down all the chatter. I'm kind of taking a break from, you know, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with my husband who feels the necessity to be out there and just telling everybody how it is. I said, well, when I speak about my woo stuff, how do do you feel like I'm proselytizing you? And he goes, maybe. I'm like, people
Oh,
will get it when they get it. And that's,
yeah.
and some of the stuff that we're witnessing is unfortunately a necessity to awaken people.
Interesting. Right.
Yeah.
Talk. What do you mean? I think I know what you mean, and I'm agreeing with that. But then, like, explain what you mean by that a little bit more.
Well, there's a couple things I've witnessed. Again, I spend a little bit more time on the systems that, if we're going to shift into the system of autonomy and sovereignty, where we are in alignment with. I mean, I'm a spiritual person. I believe. I don't, but people, terminology is important to me. People say I have a higher power, which is, well, where is the, okay, I know this terminology, but it's not out there.
Okay.
And part of my discipline and part of what's worked for me, especially, I love to use the analogy at work of people like flight attendant. You've been a flight attendant, I love them, but they can be the craziest.
Oh.
One of my friends says, the two things that are true about flight attendants is they hate change and they can't stand the things the way they are. So
Oh, interesting. They hate
yeah,
change and they can't.
they can't stand the way things are. So
Is it because it's like it's a certain type of like personality? It's like the same type of people that are flight attendants would be actors probably, or would be like, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we have the highest divorce. I think we have the highest divorce rate of any industry, if I might. Yeah, and part of it is because I'm sure the travel. What I mean, I remember working with pilots who said, I've been happily married 25 years, but I've only seen my spouse 5 years of that because
that's why they're happily married.
That's why they're happily married. But the whole idea of pre-paving. I know people that go to work. I hear about it on the social media pages on Facebook and things, and it becomes this, conversation about, well, this happened, and all this power is granted to people outside. The company has all this power, and these people have all this power, and crew scheduling has all this power, and I'm just. And when you go out in the morning and you meet the world in this chaotic, you're just going to match energy.
Yeah.
I've had people when they're boarding my plane look and go, I just catch because I have eyes all over. And people are like, oh my God, he's so nice. And it's like that changes. That tone has a vibration that goes, and people are going to think twice. Nobody wants to be the guy that beats up on a nice person. I mean, there are people that we all know that, and I don't do it. It's genuine with me. I genuinely I love the experience of flying. I love airplanes. I love giving really good service. It's kind of my happy place. I think that service is an art form. I think, as someone who's probably maybe a recovering caregiver, in the best sense, to me, there's something about uplifting. That's what I do in the course of a day.
Yeah.
And I can't do that if I'm all clogged up
Mm,
with absorbing all the energy of the world that is not all of it, but a lot of it is engineered to distract, to discourage, to make you feel powerless. And if you're powerless, you're controllable.
right.
And I mean, most people, a lot of people, if you watch, I mean, I love the comedy shows. I love late night television. If you go to my Facebook page, I don't put a lot of political stuff on anymore because I don't want to fuel. I'm trying not to feel separation
Yeah.
and us versus them.
Right.
But this one's hysterical.
What is it?
It's Jimmy Kimmel talking about it looks like an advertisement for a drug. It's called
Oh.
Resign,
Oh my God. That's so funny.
and it's a spoof on Trump. But to me that's a funny way of disarming.
Mm,
Like if we can look at the emperor has no clothes,
yeah.
then we are not going to fall. I have so many friends. I love them dearly. They get on Facebook. Oh my God, did you see what he did today? Did you see what he did?
Oh,
No, stop looking at. I mean, we need to be aware, but not so aware that we're
mm,
attached. And that's where our relationship with uncertainty is, because it's really not uncertainty when we're heart centered and heart following. And we know we're okay. My
yeah.
husband and I had this great conversation last night. He's military, he has this, I got to keep my family safe. I got to make sure you and the boys are safe. And I'm like, dude, I have lived in New York City for 17 years, in some of the craziest, wacky neighborhoods that people look at me like, you got to be on drugs. And I wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just didn't have any fear.
Yeah.
But I had this promise that
Mm.
if I felt something weird, I would honor it and follow it.
Oh, I like that.
Somebody gave, I can't remember who, I think it was my early days in, um, in some of my religious studies and when I was still, um, are you okay?
Sorry,
Oh,
something fell, but I picked it up.
okay. But yeah, just like follow the instinct, follow
Oh,
the impulse. If it
yeah.
takes you a little out of your way, it may be valuable.
It could save your life.
Yeah. I remember one time being in New York City, and I lived in Brooklyn, and I'd gone out with friends, and it was like 3 a.m, and I had to take the train to, a half an hour into the bowels of Brooklyn. I mean, I lived near Brooklyn College, and I got on at West Fourth, which is Greenwich Village, and something really strong said, "Get off this train." And I said, "Okay." And I got off the train and I waited, and it was hot. I think it was summertime and it was hot. And anybody that's rode the subways in New York City in the summertime knows
Oh,
that's not a fun thing to
dude,
do.
so hot. You kidding me?
And I got on the train, went home, and the next day there was a robbery on the train I got off.
I completely believe that and think that that's amazing that you listen to that feeling inside of you instead of being lazy or like disregarding it. Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then it just
I-
it affirms what you feel. So next time you feel something, you remember to listen to it.
Well, and even, as I brought up the workers' comp issue last year, this was a huge moment for me in my relationship with my autonomy and my sense of sovereignty versus I had injured myself. And anybody that's dealt with workers' comp, and I know I'm making blanket statements, but I had created a relationship that I was fighting. Like it was like, and I'd injured my hip a year and a half. I had total hip replacement a year and a half ago.
Oh.
And I went back to work in March, and I wasn't strong enough, and in having to do all the mechanics of opening and closing the door with a weaker hip, I tore my rotator cuff.
Oh,
and the message was, why am I consistent? Why am I forcing myself? Again, sometimes you say we force ourselves to do things, and it's like, I'm obviously not getting a message here, or,
Yeah.
And even though I followed all the processes, they were still appealing the case. And now that it's all done, I can talk. And I had a fabulous attorney helping me through all this. But there was this sense of like, okay, now that I hurt my shoulder, we're not going to, they immediately don't want to pay for anything because I'm expensive, But that is what happens when 20 years of doing this job. I mean, we're pushing up heavy, we're constantly pushing, pulling, after a while, these body parts, anyway. So they had appealed my hip case. And so I didn't want to, they were also, after I'd had positive medical, like 5 doctors had said this was all work related. And the consequences were, if they won that appeal, I would have to pay back all the time loss paid, which is not unlike disability. So, when you're on workers' comp, they pay you a percentage of your salary. If you lose your appeal, you have to pay that back. It was like 50 grand. I'm like, that's not gonna. I was having sleepless nights over this, and so I did the heroic thing, and I worked all summer with a torn rotator cuff, and also because I needed, and I was reaching out to the union, and I was kind of making myself and everyone a little crazy because I wanted somebody outside of me to take this, this situation away from me. I felt powerless. I felt really, victimized by the whole situation. And there were people coming in and saying, oh yes, poor baby, yours, and at one point, I finally, when I went out, finally, they approved it, said, okay, we're going to do it. And I had the last day of my trip, I just walked off and said, I never have to do this again. And there was this
a sigh of relief.
Yeah, like I'd reached this point, collecting Social Security. I know I don't look old enough, but I did. And then I had my surgery, and I reached out to senior management who were very responsive to me, contacted me and said, come and see me. So with my arm in a sling and stoned out of my mind, I went to this meeting to tell them, this is crazy. This is costing the company money to have this procedure like this. And they said, right, but once the legal process has started, we kind of, so to make this long story even longer, I had to be deposed. And anybody that sat for a deposition, it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Because you've been deposed, right? In the famous Bernstein versus Virgin America that were
8 hours.
Yeah. Oh God, mine was only 2. So yeah. So how crazy it is. So but I was post-op, my shoulder was killing me, and I had to get this thing done. And it turned out to be a gift of tremendous importance. And then all the pieces fit together for me. Back in 2000 and 2003, 4, 5, 6, whatever, my ex-husband, in the midst of a swollen brain from Lyme disease, decided to take on City Hall, or actually 2 crazy-ass developers in San Diego, who, let's see if I can say this without getting into trouble, had less than ethical means. And had all, it's in the book, but it all had to do with mortgage fraud that, and then eventually almost brought the economy down in 2008 when the collapse of the mortgage.
Yeah.
This was, and my ex had worked for a financial mortgage financial company, and I was in a really crazy place in my life that I will, um, and I was doing things that were not in my best interest,
Oh,
that were stress results, and we were homeless at some time. I mean, it was just this crazy. I mean, when you go after wealthy people
yeah.
who have the means to be, corrupt, and you're just two people limping along without resources, what they do to whistleblowers is legitimate.
Yeah.
And part of me goes, okay, for all the altruism, I had no business being there. That was my lesson. But I was constantly under the threat of being deposed, and it was it felt exposure to me. It felt like
Mm,
shaming. It felt like all kinds of things. And I carried that in my consciousness for over 20 years.
damn.
And last fall, when I walked through this, like, Eric Butterworth, who's a unity minister, said we go through things and we go through them till we grow through them. And I
Yeah.
fought that inevitability. And it turned out to be the most liberating thing. I held my head up high. I told the truth
Yeah.
exactly as things happened. And it was,
Wow.
and after that, they dropped the case.
Really? Wow. Because they knew you
And
had a case.
I survived what I thought, and I was asking my
Mhm.
lawyer. I mean, I was having post-traumatic stress responses. I was getting triggered. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I felt like I was going to be exposed. My HIV status would be, and it was, I mean, I wrote a book about it, but it just felt like all this exposure would be, because that's what was happening 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be, and so what I had fought so hard to avoid turned out to be the greatest
Mm,
lesson. And so sometimes, what our mind is telling us to do is like all this, I don't know, all this planning, all this,
mm,
trying to control the uncontrollable is
yeah.
like just lots of breath work, because it is insane right now. It is
Yeah.
totally insane. But we have the choice of how much we're going to play into it, how much we are going to allow our spirit, because the goal in this is that once we go through these steps and look at our own shadows, our own preconceived ideas, or our own false premises about what's real and who we really are.
Yeah.
I was raised Catholic, and we were raised with the concept of original sin, and we used to joke, what sin is original?
Right.
I mean, this is all self-inflicted nonsense. I'm sorry, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
That little kid, there's a meme, a little kid in the height, and he's in his little car seat, and he's going, bullshit, bullshit. Have you seen it? It's
No.
often played. It's so
That's
cute.
cute.
And so, I mean, the end, I believe, and the aliens are going to come and tell us all this anyway, is that once we get through this madness and it purges, that's why I believe it's it's all this repressed stuff, the shadow that we haven't wanted to look at.
Yeah.
It's all the quote unquote great sins, whatever. And once we get through it, on the other side is
Mm,
relief and freedom. And I mean, and we
yeah.
don't even have to wait to get there.
I love that. That's beautiful.
There's a quote that Eric Butterworth used to use quite a bit, and I think it's attributed to Père Teilhard de Chardin, who is one of my favorite philosophers. He's not really a theologian, but he was a Jesuit priest who he had gone to China as an anthropologist, and the monks got a hold of him, and he coined the whole concept. Well, he didn't. He wrote a lot about the concept that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And he
Yeah.
said the only thing that's predestined, and he termed it as the Alpha and the Omega. And
Mm.
he said the only thing that's predestined is that we're on the path to understanding that we are God.
Okay.
We are the expression in
Mm.
human form. And he said there'll be a time, and I love this quote, and I think it's his, but I haven't been able to find the exact. But the quote went, "There'll come a time and place in the evolution of," they said man, but I changed it to humanity, where the the relation the relationship between our humanity and our spirituality will be so connected,
Mm.
so together that there'll be no place to bow down and pay homage, not even within ourselves.
Wow. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Oh, that's how I'm coping. And it
Yeah.
usually, usually lasts um, a while. And I can actually have moments of great expectation. I mean, I think the conversation needs to be more about what is it we want to create?
Yeah.
Laughter,
Mm.
abundance, um, caring for each other, those qualities, you know, I'm trying, I am working. So just to
Let-
give go back on the, oh,
I have like 8 minutes, just let you know.
okay. I'm just going to clarify the book.
Okay.
So what I decided to do, and my poor Stacy, she just like every time I get a phone call from you, I think you're going to ditch the
Oh,
project, and it's like
no.
it's a process for me. It's so
Yeah.
personal
Right.
because I realized then in the writing of the book, the original one, there was a level of catharsis that didn't need to be. There were things that I said that in in retrospect and where I'm at now, I would have softened. People, there's a level of disclosure that is important, but then there's a level of being too close to the scene of the crime when you're talking about it. And now,
Yeah.
like, people just, it was like bam, 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 bam. It's like, you know, people would tell me I needed a bottle of wine and a box of Kleenexes to read this book, and I don't need to be traumatizing people. And there were just some disclosure things that I'm working towards. But the first part of the book, which is the 29 days and a wake up, which talks about my illness and how I got there, and it's a lot of the history um, in there, is, in my opinion, a book in and of itself. And when I go back to work, that's the story to me that is self-contained, and I didn't want to rewrite it, and I didn't want to trash it because I worked on it for like 5 years. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I have invested in it, and it tells a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I'm working on finding people to help me edit that. Any volunteers? Not volunteers. I pay people to do it, but anyway.
Yeah.
And then the love story.
Mm. Yeah.
And I started off this relationship 11 years ago, and I mean, I'll give credit. It was watching the series Heated Rivalry
Mm.
that inspired me to tell the story,
Yeah.
because I thought,
Yeah.
here, for those of you who don't know, it's an HBO, it's a Canadian story. It's these two young hockey players who are rivals, and they have a 10-year relationship and they're having sex with each other. And in the book, it's an M&M romance novel, and it's very graphic. And the TV show took great risks and showed a lot of beautiful male on male sexual expression.
That's when
And
you called me, was when you had.
it also has a happy ending. And so I felt like our story has so many components of that. It's just happens with older people, because
Mm.
there is a conversation and a scenario and a story in the gay community that needs to be challenged. And that is that, it's only young people. And when you're old, it's all over. And also that there's nobody serious out there, and nobody wants monogamy, and I don't hold
Yeah.
monogamy up as the you know, the gold star standard. It's for some people and it's not for everybody, and it's not immoral. It's just it is what it is. And but one of the things I learned, which guides me today, is I get to be the person. I get to choose what I focus and what I um ignite in people. And I get to do it every day with my husband.
Yeah.
I can focus on him leaving his dirty underwear on the bathroom floor and making me crazy.
Yeah.
Or I can focus on the fact that 2 weeks ago, his ADHD saw this young man, this teenage boy who was out in the cold and the rain with a windbreaker and a bandaged hand, who was hungry. And he gave him $10, bought him a sandwich.
Oh.
And that's the heart. And so I do it in work.
Yeah.
You know what? I can look at the person who's having a grumpy day and say, is there anything I can do to make this better? And if not, then I go, I have 165 people or 170 or 200, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
so
It's a great mentality. You've learned that. That's
Yeah.
something you've learned.
it works.
Thank you for talking.
Yeah. I had no idea. I mean, I had sort of an idea where I was going, and I was like, oh, you know,
Yeah. Hopefully this helps too. Hopefully this helps you.
it does. It
sort it out.
does.
Okay, good.
You know, yeah. And there's no urgency. There's no, oh my God. And like I said, if this helps 10 people, it helps 5. It's not a numbers game for me. I don't need to be famous, and
Yeah.
but anyway,
Well, thank you. This is perfect. And
Yeah.
you have talked to a few people, you know, spoken to a few people because they've commented and yeah.
Yeah. I gotta see the comment. So next time we do this, we gotta figure out ways to, you're gonna change, so we blast it out. So
Oh yeah, I know the problem is that my schedule changed. I feel
yeah,
bad.
that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
You know what
not working.
so But what I'll do is before we do the live, I'll jump on and do like a pregame so we get people.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right.
But anyway, thank you, Nicholas.
I love you,
Bye, I
darling.
love you. I'll talk with you soon.
All right.
Bye.